In question number 1 here in problems A, we have Ricky traveling 3,000 kilometers in 59 hours. And I want to know what his speed is in both meters per second and kilometers per hour. Well, of course, the second one's actually going to be the easiest one to do to begin with, because if I have 3,000 kilometers and I do this in 59 hours, then right off the bat we see that that gives me kilometers per hour. So all I have to do is divide those two. I'm just using the formula V equals D over T, which is our primary formula here for problems A. That works out to 50.85, which when we look at it, the 3,000 only has one sig fig, so we want to round that off to 50 kilometers per hour. Next, we want to know how many meters per second that gives us. Well, there's a couple ways to do this, but the easiest way to do this is to use the conversion factor I gave you near the bottom of the notes. Whenever we are in kilometers per hour, we can switch into meters per second by just dividing by 3.6. So if I divide kilometers per hour by 3.6, that'll always give me meters per second. So if I take that number and I divide it by 3.6, that gives me 14.124 meters per second. But again, since I only have one sig fig, I need to round that off to 10 meters per second. So if you were getting this answer and you were freaking out because you couldn't figure out why 10 was the right answer, it's because you didn't round off to one sig fig. It's kind of weird when we round off to one sig fig because we don't do that often, but that was the case this time. If you're trying to figure out where the heck this 3.6 number came from, you have to look at kilometers and meters and hours and seconds. How many seconds are in an hour? Some of you might be thinking 60, but that's 60 seconds in a minute, and then there's 60 more minutes in an hour, so 60 times 60 gives me 3,600 seconds are in an hour. And kilo, of course, means thousand, so there's 1,000 meters in a kilometer, so that's 1,000. So if I'm switching from kilometers per hour to meters per second, I'm basically taking 3,600 divided by 1,000, which of course is 3.6. So that's where the magic handy-dandy conversion factor of 3.6 comes from. Now, if you're worried about sig figs, there are no sig figs in 3.6 because this is a perfectly certain known number. Neither of these have any uncertainty in them. We have sig figs only because there is uncertainty. And of course, we know exactly how many seconds are in a minute and how many minutes are in an hour because nobody gets a cheap minute that only has 58 seconds in it or something. Same thing with kilo. Kilo means by definition 1,000, so that's 1,000. You're not going to find a kilometer that gave you an extra and you got 1,003 meters in that kilometer. It's always going to be exactly 1,000. So we know with no uncertainty that this 3.6 number works out. So basically, if you have 10 coming in, you're going to have 10 coming out if you use this conversion factor. You're always going to have the same number of sig figs, so that won't count.